President and Head of Retail for Expedia Worldwide, Gary Morrison.
So welcome back. I hope you're nicely watered and fed. I'm delighted to be here. It's the second year that I've been here, and I thought today I'd talk to you a little bit about one of the themes of the conferences, which is how does scale affect the players in the industry? And I thought I'd start by actually saying that it's actually Expedia's 20th birthday this Friday. And I thought it would be interesting just to talk to you a little bit about how we got to the company that we are today. And you'll see actually there's three phases to our history. The first, what we call the private years. And this is basically when Hotels.com was formed, Expedia.com, Expedia went public, and then Barry Diller, as part of his IAC group, then bought them all. And as you'll see, as we move into 2004, we acquired Agencia, we acquired TripAdvisor, we also created a position in China, and towards the end of 2005, the company was then spun out and made public. And then we have the public years, which sort of span from 2006 until today. And what you'll see is that there's been quite a frenetic period of acquisitions. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, you know, how do these acquisitions all play together in creating scale? And you can see that we've bought companies that add on to our core OTA business, but we've also bought meta sites, we bought rental car sites, and most recently, home and away. So what I thought I'd do is start by sort of, you know, how does this collectively look together? When you look at all of the Expedia brands within Expedia Inc., you know, collectively that corresponds to probably the largest diversified travel platform in the world. You know, today, if you look back across 2015, there's about 450 million visitors across 75 countries. And on the right-hand side, you can see the supply footprint in terms of hotels, vacation rentals through home away, all of the airline relationships that we have. And we like to characterize what the benefit of having this very large demand footprint and very large supply footprint is really giving us three things. Firstly, it gives us scale and relevance. That scale and relevance in terms of consumers, but it's also relevance in terms of our partners and the demand that they can tap into. It gives us an ability to test and learn at incredible velocity, and I'll talk a little bit more in the context of scale about what that means from a business model perspective. And lastly, with that scale and test and learn, you know, we have a fundamental belief that that enables us to deliver best-in-class customer and partner experiences. So within that whole EI platform, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the largest platform within our company, which is the brand Expedia Group. So this is a single full-service platform that sells hotels, flights, cars, packages, all different permutations. And with some of the acquisitions, especially over the last few years, we actually power all of these brands. So Expedia in several sites across the world, Wotif in Australia, Travelocity Orbitz in the US, AirAsia Expedia and AirAsia Go in Asia, and eBookers, which we're migrating onto the platform now. So coming back to the question about scale, why is scale important? The first part about scale is it means you have more traffic. Why is traffic important? Traffic is fundamentally the lifeblood of how many tests you can run concurrently. The more tests that you can run concurrently, if you have the same hit rate or the same win rate, basically means you can create better experiences. Better experiences for your customers, better experiences for your partners. And with those better experiences, obviously we hope we get more repeat business. That in turn helps our bottom line, which means we can invest in more traffic. So at its most basic level, our business model is comprised of trying to create that largest, you know, single platform. And to give you some ideas of the kinds of things that we think about from a product design perspective, I thought I'd tease you with this graph here. If you look at the number of people in the US who have a driving license, so on the top yellow line, it's people who have driving license age 2024, 16 to 19, considerably lower, and you'll see since 1983, coming to 2011, there's a sharp decline. Well, that feels kind of odd. I mean, one of the things you could believe is that, US public infrastructure, transport infrastructure has magically improved over the same time period. I think most of us would probably think that that's not true. But when you consider the US, and obviously it's such a large landmass, and you think of, where people live, actually having access to a car was fundamentally how people connected together. But what you actually see today is that people are spending a lot less time connecting physically and a lot more time connecting electronically, either using WhatsApp or lots of other different messaging services or Facebook and so on and so forth. So as we think about product design, whether it's product design for travel or product design for any other category, right, there are a number of principles that we think about in terms of how do we compete for people's attention? Because essentially, that's the game that we're in. We're trying to compete for other people's attention with our products so that when they think about buying travel, they're going to come to us. And there's kind of four kind of things that we think about when we think about design principles. One is, prioritize real-time, speed, information. The second one that we think about is data. Third one we think about is playful and engaging. And the fourth one that we think about is cross-platform. So if we just talk about those in a little bit more detail, why is prioritizing real-time information so important? On one level, it's very important simply because you want your products and services to have low latency. If you press book, you want the response rate to come back more quickly. But the real value in having a real-time platform means that you can create feeds. You can create streams of information. You can create feeds. And feeds are incredibly important for a number of reasons. You could imagine a hotelier who owns an independent hotel in Italy. And what he's really interested in is finding out, well, what are the other rates that my competitor hotels in Rome are offering? Being able to deliver that kind of information in real time to hoteliers is incredibly important and helps them manage their business. Equally, if the hotelier sees that there's a particular opportunity to offer a promotion, knowing that the platform is real time and he can create the promotion and send that out through that incredibly broad demand network, and 15 minutes later it will be live, is incredibly important. From a consumer perspective, the point that you actually get into your hotel room after you've checked in, if you're asked if you'd like to give a quick real-time review about your experience, no more than 3 or 4 questions, happy face or sad face, that information can be streamed back to the front desk. And the front desk can look at that and say, well, actually, Mr. Jones or Mrs. Jones is having a problem. We can do something about it. Or you can create feeds that people can configure for themselves, streaming deals, but how personally relevant to them. The second point that I would say in this sort of loosely connected 4 would be playful and engaging experience. And probably the simplest example I can give is, you all recall when the iPhone first came out. And if you had a static list, it presented that static list as a wheel. And the beautiful thing about that wheel is it had momentum. It was almost organic. It's very tactile. And it makes you want to engage, and it's playful. So when you have an opportunity to create your product, the more that you can create a more organic, playful experience, supplemented with feeds, the more engaging it's going to become, the more memorable it's going to become, the more dopamine it will create in your brain, the happier you will feel. I think the third aspect of this is how you should think about data. A lot of the time, people talk about the importance of big data, having huge amounts of data sets and being able to mine that data in order to develop insights. I would posit that there is another aspect to data which is incredibly important. If I give you my email address, then I would expect that you would be able to email me things that might be relevant to me. If I give you my email address and my physical address, I would expect you to send me travel offers which are related to my origin airport. If I give you my email address, my physical address, and my search history, I'm expecting that that information that you're going to be giving me is very relevant. And it's very clear from a lot of the research that we've done with millennials is there is a clear willingness for this younger population, 18 to 30-year-olds, to freely give a lot of personal information about themselves. But there is an equal and corresponding thought that this information should be returned back to you in something that's very valuable, something with recommendations. So it's that concept of making sure that there's a sort of a yin-yang approach to data. The last one, which is actually, again, comes out of some recent research that we've shown, is actually very interesting in how people think about devices. I mean, we're all clearly very familiar with how desktop has morphed into tablet, morphed into phone, morphed into watch. And as part of some of the research that we were seeing is that there is a very clear expectation that we will develop our travel platform to encompass things like Google Cardboard or Oculus Rift. And indeed, the kinds of services that people are looking for us to provide, it's not just pictures and videos of a destination. They actually want to have a 3D experience where they can look at the barrier reef, and they can look around, and they can see what that experience would be like, and use that as part of the information gathering that they would have during the research phase. And of course, you're all very familiar that cross-platform behavior is quite interesting. We see people who shop on mobile that then consummate the purchase on desktop. We know that people use their laptops, or sorry, their iPads and tablets when they're watching TV. Part of the reason we know that is when an ad goes on air, we can see a spike in tablet traffic. So it's very easy to sort of understand what dynamic is going here. But I would also imagine that, as we develop services for things like Oculus Rift, that you're going to be seeing that that will be supplanting some existing behavior that's on tablet, will now shift over to this new platform. So, in thinking about those design principles, which sound very broad, you have to have some sort of generic, what I would term, organizational strategy for how you want to build to those principles. We have three. The first one is thinking about how you should challenge conventional wisdom. I'll give you a very short story about the flight business. How many people in this room choose a flight origin destination based on price? Right, a good fair few of them. So the conventional wisdom, at least with airlines, with OTAs, and with consumers, is price is the determining feature. What's actually quite interesting, as an experiment, we decided to launch real-time reviews on flights. So basically, when you land, you got an email, very simple, 2 or 3 questions, happy face, sad face, about your experience. I mean, the first thing that was quite surprising is the number of people who actually responded. So obviously, people were interested in sharing the information. So we then developed that real-time review into a little bit more sort of attributed information. Tell us what you thought about Wi-Fi, what you thought about the entertainment, seat pitch, power, aircraft, is it on time, food. Attributes that we can then aggregate together to get some sense of what is the product like. And the final piece of this is to sort of say, well, if we integrated this into the search results, would it make a difference? And what was very interesting is that for loosely approximate flight search results, people were then looking at the quality of the product, which was the aggregate of this information in order to make a decision. Which, from our perspective, is great, and it's also great from an airline perspective, because what we've managed to determine is people's choice about loosely equivalent things isn't all about price. Actually, people do care about some of these other attributes as well. So a second principle, scientific method. I would imagine most people in this room have heard and test and learn. A/B tests. Yes, very many. It is a cornerstone of how we think about our company, and I'm not going to go in great amounts of detail. I'm sure it's something you're quite familiar with, but we always start with some of these experiments, whether it's in product, whether it's in marketing or call centers or any aspect of our business, asking a simple question, collecting some observations, and then being very, very pointed about what a hypothesis might be, and most importantly, being able to test as quickly as possible. What we do not try and do is invest a ton of money and resources into creating a prototype. What I'd much rather do, for example, let's say I would like to launch an insurance product. I could go to a range of insurance providers. I could talk about all the products that we think that our consumers might want. Or I can simply put a button on my website saying, book insurance. With that single button, and looking at the traffic and how many people click it, I've got my first signal. How many people might be interested in insurance? And you can simply start building the products from there. And indeed, the flight review started out as a simple experiment as, well, how many people will respond to an email? So it's that notion of trying to get the maximum amount of information with the minimum amount of investment and doing it as fast as you can. As you think about the test volume over time, these are product-related tests. If you look at sort of the period 2011 to 2013, the number of tests has doubled. And then 2013 to 2015, doubling again. You remember the chart that I showed you earlier about more traffic, more tests, better experiences. This is inherent within the business model that we're trying to pursue. I would say, though, it's not just about products. One of the things that we would do is that we would look at all facets of our business and see how you could overlay that test and learn philosophy. So, for example, this particular ad, we may have a male voiceover, a female voiceover. We may change the color of that shirt from blue to yellow. We'll try hundreds of different variants and look at the traffic when the ad goes on air to see on a relative basis which ones are resonating. And if you wanted to get really, really clever, you could look at those cookies and customers that you recognize and say, well, is there a male SKU? Is there a female SKU? There's an awful lot of information that you can get there if you choose to look for it. The last one, culture and values. I think in any organization, it's all very well having a sense of what your strategy is. We'd like to design to this. We use a scientific method. But there's another aspect, which is how, are there organizational implications if you want to adopt this strategy? And what we have found, again, by sort of test and learning, is there is approximately 3. The first one is test any idea, regardless of origin. If we had relied on conventional wisdom or people with the most expertise, as defined by tenure, or people who had positional authority, we never would have come up with that flight idea, or many other ideas. From our perspective, the most important thing is to make sure that we get as many good ideas from wherever they come, either whether suppliers or customers or ourselves, and as long as we can construct a good observation and hypothesis, it'll get tested. I think the second one is a slightly different approach to management. There are many companies that would espouse going on courses and work experience and so on and so forth in order to develop talent. And in somewhat the same sort of theory as we thought about test and learn winners, we came up with very, very simple, wouldn't it be great if all of our leaders just committed to being a tiny bit better every day? Just try slightly new things to see if you get along with your co-workers better, if you feel slightly less stressed, if you're slightly more productive. But it was that notion of keep on trying small things appropriate to you in order to get better. And getting better, actually, is an awful lot about getting very, very transparent, open, regular feedback. So a couple of times a year, we would regularly get 400 or so people together, and we would have a feedback forum, not too dissimilar to this room, and I would be standing up and I would be asking, I would like you to give me feedback about me and my team. And I'd have to listen. And I would expect you to be incredibly honest about my performance and give me things that I should be improving on. It's very tough the first few times that you do that. But once you actually get into the rhythm of doing that, it provides you all of the data that you need in order to become a little bit better every day. So, again, these are things that we've embraced, and like everything, we'll keep on innovating a little bit and see what serves us better as we go into the future. I wanted just to part with one sort of final theme. I mean, all of us in the room are very, I believe, extremely fortunate to be in the travel business. It is a wonderful technology business. It creates delight for so many billions of people across the world. Anyway, I wanted to leave you with a final video which sort of displays some of the things that we can do with travel, even with those people who can't travel. But what it does show is how the magic of technology can somehow give people that magical experience. So I leave you with this video.
Children that are at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital are there for months or maybe even years, and they're not able to go out and see different parts of the world. This experience allows me to bring PRs, dream her from thousands of miles away. Hopefully, she'll feel as if she's here in Argentina and that she is on this adventure with these wild horses with me. Anything I can do to help make today better for her is my honor to do.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Gary. Now let's bring our talkbackers up to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alan Clark, CEO of Homestay, and Frank Reeves, founder and CEO of VIO.
Hi, Gary. Nice video.
Dave, how are you?
So, I think I've drawn the first question straw. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your participation, Gary. My business cares almost militantly about working with hotels to grow direct business. So I think the reason I've been invited to participate in this discussion is to really table some of the tension between hotels and the direct challenges with OTA partners. And one of the things that our hotels are, frequently frustrated by is the lack of, or the very low customer lifetime value associated with the booking from an OTA. And I think there are three contributors to that low lifetime value in an OTA customer to a hotel. First being obviously the OTA commission, but the second being that I think the OTAs seem to be very motivated by the lack of loyalty between a customer and a specific hotel through an OTA. So Remco van Zanten, for example, spoke at last month's i4Travel and said that same bookings for the same hotel through Booking.com is absolutely tiny. So I wondered if you could speak to this challenge that hotels have in low customer lifetime value from Expedia, whether that's something that you're focused on or whether you're motivated actually in the opposite direction.
Well, I think first of all we have to characterize what business we're in. So Expedia is a technology-based marketing platform that's designed to connect airlines, hotels, car rental companies to global sources of demand. And basically, our proposition to our supply partners is quite simple. This is an industry which requires huge amounts of scale and huge amounts of technology investment in order to be able to reach those pockets of customer demand wherever they are in the world and bring those to our partners more profitably than if they were to try and create the equivalent platform on their own. So essentially, by providing that scale across all of those partners, we aim to be able to do a better, more efficient job than they would be able to achieve themselves. So I think from that perspective, it's very important to not sort of say, well, could they do, is there a low customer lifetime value or so on and so forth. I would probably posit that the customer lifetime value or the loyalty to a specific hotel is probably more directly correlated to the experience that, as a traveler, that you have at a hotel. So
I think the flip side of that, though, Gary, would be the constant increase in cancellation rates. I mean, some hotels are modeling a 30% cancellation rate now on OTA bookings. So in many cases, they've not even really had a chance to create that experience with the customer.
Sorry, could you just repeat the cancellation rate point?
Cancellation rate, many hotels are modeling and accounting for up to 30% cancellation rates from OTA bookings. So, in those cases, they're not even really getting that opportunity to build that relationship and that experience with the guest.
To be fair, I haven't seen that data to suggest that the cancellation rate that OTAs deliver to hotels is, materially greater than what hotels would receive themselves. It's certainly not something that we as a company would ever want to encourage people to do. What we want to be able to do is to provide people with all the relevant information on, in terms of price, what the reviews are, what the descriptions of the hotel, so that they can make an informed choice once. And then, should anything go wrong with the booking, to provide all of the service experience, whether it's call center or through the app, to help travelers as they go along their trip. So I have to say I'm curious. I haven't seen the same data that you have.
Thanks, Frank. Gary, thanks for taking us through the journey of Expedia from private to IAC to public. And it's an acquisition journey in many ways, so I'd be remiss to walk off the stage and not ask about one of the most recent acquisitions, HomeAway. So a three-pronged question. First piece, what are some of the successes and surprises that you've seen since the acquisition has moved from pre-M&A to post-merger integration? Two, what do you think will be the ultimate catalyst to driving the most value from that acquisition for both Expedia and HomeAway? And then three, in the very recent couple of weeks, TripAdvisor buying HouseTrip and, does Booking.com need to go buy Airbnb? Where is this positioning Expedia, TripAdvisor, Booking across this landscape of alternative accommodation?
So if I may, I'm going to do those questions in the reverse order. So why do so many players in the industry care about what's loosely called the alternative lodging space? Because consumers want it. The fact of the matter is that we, as well as many of our competitors, have seen that consumers, when they think about lodging as a very broad church. There is chain hotels at one end. There are very small boutique four-room hotels at another end, which almost blur into a category of renting somebody's room or renting somebody's house. So from our perspective, as a global travel company, we want to make sure that we are relevant to consumers. The alternative lodging space was growing very rapidly, and we saw an opportunity to acquire HomeAway, and did so. I think your second question is, how do we intend to integrate it? How do we intend to make it valuable to Expedia Inc. as a whole? Well, I think there's a couple of sort of strands there. The first strand would be, we will continue to experiment how to take HomeAway's inventory and use that on our other sites. We're not being prescriptive. We will test our way into it. We'll test different formats. Maybe we'll interweave it with hotel search listings. Maybe it'll be separate. Maybe it'll be a filter. We'll look, we'll test, we'll see what's relevant. I think the second strand is just one of technology. Obviously, HomeAway, has its own booking platform. We have lots of other booking platforms. And I'm not saying that we'll rationalize their booking platform and ours. It's a different experience. Shopping for an apartment, and then somebody, takes the booking, they look at it, and they say, do I like the look of this person? If I do, then I'll choose to, respond and say, yes, my apartment's free, and so on. So not everything is, online bookable. There is the other method. I am a HomeAway customer as well. I have an apartment in Spain, and for me, I choose to want to have a look at who's potentially going to rent my apartment before I choose to say yes, they're okay.
And do you think the scale of data, that you spoke a lot about scale and data, and I think about AI and the role of AI in bringing together demand and supply in a more efficient and effective way? Is that one of the things that Expedia can bring to the HomeAway platform, to have an identity for a consumer that matches their demand and their supply for the alternative space in a way that maybe HomeAway couldn't do on its own?
Yes. The short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer is, even when I talked about A/B testing today, the next generation of A/B testing is machine learning, which is essentially a whole sequential series of A/B tests where you rely on the machine to actually alter the test design to pursue an objective. The third iteration of machine learning is AI, which can give you a better result, but by definition it tends to be slightly more opaque. You're not exactly sure why it came out with the result that it came out. Mm-hmm. We have about 700 data scientists worldwide that are looking at designing algorithms and how we think about, whether we think about simple things like sort order or what merchandising should be shown, and so on and so forth. So I definitely think that there is a core competence around testing, machine learning, and AI. I don't think we've had too many examples of AI in our businesses yet, but a lot of examples of machine learning.
Gary, we have a question from the floor.
Hi, Dan Beccari from Criteo. I was wondering, once your companies have been integrated all on the same platform, whether you're thinking of actually integrating everything under the same brand?
No, the intention is not to do that. What we found is that when we look at the different brands in the different markets, is that the composition of the customer bases is different. Their purchasing patterns are different. If I look at Wotif, for example, Wotif was largely a domestic brand, whereas Expedia was largely an outbound. Expedia Australia was largely catered to the outbound traveler. What we try and do is to use algorithms and different site designs and features and so on over a period of time to make sure that the experience fits its existing customer base. So there is no plan at this stage to collapse brands. We do want to get economies of scale on core platform technology, though.
Have we time for another question?
One more.
I've got one more. Okay. Well, I think
throw one more in there.
I think the most important one, again, from a hotel's perspective, at least the one I hear most often, is how can an OTA justify to a hotel that it uses the hotel brand terms on Google to steal traffic away and sell it back to the hotel at OTA commission, or in fact sell a different hotel to that consumer? Where's the value add in the relationship between a hotel and an OTA with brand name marketing?
To tell you the truth, I think you need Google on the stage to be able to help answer that question. Because I think the nature of the way that Google constructs its auction is that people can bid on each other's brand terms. So I think from that perspective, our goal is not to subvert, subvent, prevent, otherwise inhibit
But you can switch it off, Gary,
our hotel partners from developing their other channels, and we would actively encourage them to do so. Our perspective is that if we can provide bookings at a very competitive rate of return, and hotels choose to work with us, and then that's the way that we would want to work with them.
If a hotel wanted you not to do that specifically, is that an okay request?
They
from the
can
client?
choose not to work with us, of course.
Okay, but it's an either or.
Well,
You're
we
going
would
to do
hope-
it unless they opt out. I guess
I
that's
mean,
the question that hotels
I
ask.
think from our perspective, if we look at the room night growth rates, year over year, and which have been extremely healthy over the last 3 years, the company's continuing to grow. That would speak for itself.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Morrison, Alan Clark, and Frank Reeves.
Thanks, Ed.
Cool. Thanks.